So now let's get into a little bit more detail about the drop 2 voicings on the top 4 strings. The reason these are important, as we discovered, was because the closed voicings that are so easy to understand theoretically don't work very well on the guitar, so we open up the voicings and we get these more playable chord structures. And as is the case with any 4-note chord, you have 4 inversions. You have the root position, which is the root in the bass, first inversion, which has the 3rd in the bass, second inversion has the 5th in the bass, and the third inversion has the 7th in the bass. But on the top 4 strings, we are out of the bass register of the instrument, and I'm not really that interested in what my lowest note is of the chord. So consequently, the lower note, which is the inversion name of these chords, I'm not going to think about so much. What I'm more interested in is, what's the top note of this chord? So if I go to my F7 drop 2 that we discovered in this previous topic, there's my F7. This is actually a 3rd inversion chord, but who cares? That note is meaningless except for it's an integral part of the chord. What's important is that note, the top note. So in this case, this is F7 with the root on top. The next inversion is F7 with the 3rd on top, F7 with the 5th on top, F7 with the 7th on top. There's your 4 inversions. But this top note is important because if we're playing solo guitar, if we're playing solo accompaniment, we're always aware of what that top note is in relation to the melody. And as we start harmonizing melody notes later on, we're going to see how important it is to know what that note is on top. That's the melody. If I turn this into my different inversions of different chord structures, now I've got major 7 with a raised 7, root on top, 3rd on top, 5th on top, 7th on top, 5th, 3rd, root. We're going to come back to this chord a little bit later because this has an issue. Minor 7, this has a flat 3 and a flat 7. It's just a bar with the root on top. That's an easy one to play. Flat 3 on top, 5 on top, flat 7 on top. And then if I go to minor 7 flat 5, in the key of F down here, I've got to play an open string. Now ordinarily I avoid that if I'm trying to play some constant structures that make musical sense, but this one out of necessity has to be there because this is where that note would normally be. 3rd on top, flat 3 on top, flat 5 on top, flat 7 on top, back to flat 5, flat 3, and then the root on top. Now I chose those 4 chord structures to work on because major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, flat 5 are the 4 most important 4-note chord structures that exist, because those are the 4 chords that make up what we know as the diatonic series of 7th chords. If you go through the diatonic series, you have 1 major 7, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, 4 major 7, 5 dominant 7, 6 minor 7, and 7 minor 7 flat 5. If you think about those 7 chords, they are made up of 2 major 7 chords. They're made up of 1 dominant 7th chord, 1 minor 7 flat 5 chord, and 3 minor 7 chord shapes. They're the chords you're going to see all the time in most music. If you were going to add a 5th form to this, you would be doing the diminished 7th chord, and that in the case of F, I'm going to end up with 2 open strings here, but that's just to get me started. And then it moves flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7, and so forth and so on. Now what I'm doing here is taking these 4 inversion shapes, and these have to be memorized. As we've said before, there's a certain amount of memorization involved, and from that memorization you're then going to turn it into other chord structures. So we take and find 4 of them, and if we can recognize those 4, then anything can be found from those shapes. So here's, for example, F7 with the 3rd on top. If I raise the 3rd, F7 sus4. If I lower the 3rd, F minor 7. Lower the 5th at the same time, F minor 7 flat 5. If I go back to my F7, here's the 5th, raise the 5th, F7 sharp 5, lower the 5th, F7 flat 5. I think you get the idea. So you can find every chord imaginable just by memorizing a few basic chord shapes and then understanding the theory of chord spelling to get you into those. So back to these shapes again. Now as I'm doing this one, remember I said we're going to come back to this? This is F major 7 with the root on top. I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to bring it up to G simply because I want you to think about something that happens with my fingering in this. This chord with the root on top and any major 7 chord that has the root on top has a problem. It's the top note against the major 7 underneath it. Some people like it. Some people may like it for whatever reason. It's not one of my favorite things to do. And if I'm working with any singers, generally if they're singing this note, I'm not going to play this chord because it's hidden a little bit in the rest of the chord, but it does stand out and you can still hear that it's there. So I've got to deal with this G major 7 chord. One of the easiest solutions for this is to take the major 7, lower 2 frets a whole step to major 6th. Now I have a G major 6 chord. I still have a major quality chord. I still have a 4-note chord voicing. I've gotten rid of the offending interval. That doesn't happen very often, but you certainly need to be aware of it when it happens. So there's your major 7 situation. Now as you're playing through these chord structures, I like to give my chords names. So for example, if I'm playing minor 7, that's a bar. I don't really need to know anything else about that. That's pretty easy to see and it's pretty easy to play and pretty easy to recognize and remember. Root on top. With the 3rd on top, there's 2 ways that I can finger this. There's F minor 7 with 4 fingers. But if I could play this with 3 fingers like this, now I've got a finger available here that I might want to play a passing tone. And that makes this a valuable tool. Some people have some difficulty doing this. I have a name for this chord. This is called concave convex because this finger is going this way and this finger is going this way at the same time. Thus, concave convex. F minor 7 with the 5th on top. I call this zigzag because if you play connect the dots with your fingers, you can see there's kind of like a Z in there. Very easy to see the zigzag. Let me go to one of my favorite chords here. If you play F major 7, we already talked about this bad voicing. How about this one? With the 3rd on top, this is 1 plus 3. Easy enough. Let me skip the 5th on top and go to the 7th on top. This is 3 plus 1. Easily confused if you're not careful. How about the one that we skipped over here, major 7 with the 5th on top? This is one of my favorite chords of all time. Do you hear that? That's the same type of dissonance brought in together that we were talking about over here. But here, it's not quite as offensive. And if I put it in the middle of the chord voicing, it's actually quite beautiful. It's quite a ringing chord. I have a name for this one. This is the sparkly chord. It's really pretty, isn't it? So we just spent a lot of time talking about F7, F major 7, F minor 7, F minor 7 flat 5. Clearly, if you only do it in F, you've only learned one of 12 keys. And that can be an issue. So here's a little puzzle that you can use that helps you learn this in almost all 12 keys. Here's F7 with the root on top, just what we did here. 3rd on top, 5th on top, flat 7 on top. Now that I've reached the top here, I take this exact voicing and slide it down to 1st position. And now I still have a flat 7 on top, but now it's not F7 any longer. Now I have A flat 7, G flat being the flat 7 of A flat 7. So now I'm going to go through that same sequence of inversions because now I've got 7 on top, root on top, 3rd on top, 5th on top. So 7th, A flat 7, root on top, A flat 7, 3rd on top, A flat 7, 5th on top, A flat 7. Now that I've completed that sequence, take that shape exactly as is, slide it down to 1st position. Now I've got C7, 5th on top, and I'm going to go through the sequence from C. C7, 5th on top, flat 7 on top, root on top, 3rd on top. Take that exact shape, slide it down to the beginning. Now I've got the 3rd on top, E flat 7. fifth on top, flat 7 on top, root on top. Take that shape and bring it down to first position, and what happens? We're back where we started. But in the process, we have now gone through 4 completely different independent keys. Now, if I'm just learning F7 like this and I bring it up a half step, yes, I'm learning a different key, but, that's just, you recognize it as F7 up a half step. By doing this little puzzle, you actually see the chords as independent entities in a key all by themselves. Now, once I've done that from the first position F, take it up a half step to F sharp 7, like we already said. But now you do the same thing from there. Third on top, fifth on top, seventh on top. Bring this down to second position, because that's where we started the F sharp 7. Now we've got A7, seventh on top, root on top, third on top, fifth on top. Take that shape and slide it down to second position. I have C sharp or D flat 7. Take that and slide it down. That brings me to E7. Slide that down, and there's the F sharp 7 that I started with. Do it again, and from third position, I've got G7, B flat 7, D7, F7. Brings me back to G7. And this is a way that this little puzzle game that you can play allows you to learn where very clearly the different keys of these drop 2 voicings happen. And later on, you can use these on other chord structures as well.